As I said in Parliament in 2001 to the then government of Tony Blair, don't talk to me about Al-Qaeda. I was opposing Al-Qaeda when the British state were stuffing guns and money down the throat of Osama bin Laden. Don't talk to me about Bashar al-Assad or his father. His father and him were presidents of Syria for 50 years. I was, as you well know, with Iraq in the great divide, let's call it a chasm, of the Arab Baath Party, an Arab nationalist dictatorship in both countries, and definitely in the case of Syria, an Arab nationalist dictatorship for 50 years. I had no relations with Syria. I have not visited there for many years, and nothing I'm going to say now indicates any love for the Syrian government, as was prior to waking up this morning. Everything I'm going to say in the next few minutes is about the love that I have for the Syrian people, the admiration, the reverence, actually, for the fidelity to the Arab national cause that the Syrian people and even the Syrian state has always exemplified. The Syrian national movement founded Arab nationalism in Damascus, the longest serving capital city in the entire world. The Arab Baath Socialist Party didn't have much to do with socialism, long forgotten and not widely practiced even before it was forgotten. But it was a citadel of the essential dignity of the Arab masses, that their people were a people, that their nation were a nation, wahad, one people, from the Atlantic to the Gulf. They never bent the knee to the Israeli state next door. They never surrendered their sovereignty over the Golan Heights, an area which has now been vastly expanded by an Israeli invasion of Lebanon. You haven't heard about the Israeli invasion of Syria yet, although you're never done hearing about other countries invading their neighbors. But the invasion of Syria this afternoon by Benjamin Netanyahu, while he stood on the Golan Heights, illegally annexed, but belonging to Syria ever since it was seized in 1967, was exultant about the role, which cannot be denied, that Israel has played in the downfall of the Syrian government and the flight of its president and his family to political asylum in Russia, in Moscow, which is where they are currently ensconced. It would have behoven President Assad to make a farewell address, even if pre-recorded, to his people. It would have behoven Assad to thank all those who sacrificed, for example, to defend the tomb of Zainab, the daughter of the Prophet Muhammad. Thousands gave their blood to defend that shrine, and now it is on fire. Now it has been set alight by the HTS. Everything I'm going to say to you tonight stems from my hatred of fundamentalist fanaticism, of the death cult that is ISIS and Al-Qaeda. My hatred of the takfiriism, the sectarianism, the murderous hatred of anything that is different from your narrow interpretation of your religion. Even people who share your religion, even people who share the same sect of your religion. Anyone who is different in any way has to be murdered and decapitated and mutilated and maimed and killed in the most horrendous ways. I don't have to look in the crystal ball for that. I can look at what happened when this ISIS Al-Qaeda phenomenon took control of significant parts of Syria over the last 12 or so years. I can tell you that the people they butchered, the heads that they cut off, the throats that they slit, the hearts that they ate, the churches that they burned, the relics that they destroyed, the nuns that they kidnapped, the priests that they murdered, the bishops that they murdered, are all still haunting them. And they haunt my perception of what they might do now that they are back in control, not just of some parts of Syria, but in control of the state itself. The leader, de facto, of the new Syria is a man called Al-Jolani. Well, that's not really his name. Like Tommy Robinson, he adopted that name. His real identity need not concern you, but his CV definitely should. He was the deputy leader to al-Zarqawi, the Al-Qaeda leader in Iraq. Then he was sent to Syria as the deputy leader to the founder of ISIS. The founder of ISIS was the number one, and Al-Jolani was the number two of ISIS in Syria. And now he's the de facto leader of Syria. Al-Baghdadi thought highly of his work, and he can certainly look up from hell, where I hope he currently burns, and see that he has in the end triumphed. And he has triumphed precisely because the Western Empire facilitated his entry into Damascus and helped him to hang the black flags on the Umayyad Mosque, the black flags on the presidential palace in Damascus once it stops burning, because that too is on fire. The Western Empire and its Israeli satrapy played, as Netanyahu boasted today, the most important and decisive role in the destruction of what was the Syrian Arab Republic. Heaven knows what it will be by the end of all this. It'll be many things, but it won't be Syrian, it won't be Arab, and it won't be a republic. Presumably some kind of hodgepodge of balkanized ethno-states, like the Israeli state next door, will be the result. But only time will tell about that. The fact that we have put the former deputy head of ISIS in power in Damascus, the former deputy head of Al-Qaeda in Iraq has been put in power in Damascus, is what I'm talking about this evening, and will be with two of our most outstanding guests, Professor Marandi from the University of Tehran, and Scott Ritter, the former UN arms inspector and former intelligence officer in the United States Marine Corps. I'm not speaking for them. They won't necessarily have views that agree entirely with mine. In fact, I'm certain that they won't. But these are my honestly held views, and they are the views of someone who, between 1980 and 2002, never set foot in Syria and would not have been wanted there if I had. The truth is that the rejoicing of the empire and of Netanyahu can be borne much more easily than I can bear the rejoicing of the liberals. The liberal progressives, the Yanis Varoufakis of the world, the Keir Starmers and Angela Rayners, the Emmanuel Macrons, and the people with Palestine flags in their bios, People who have told us for the last 14 months how Palestine was in their heart, rejoicing about a great and historic Israeli victory. You have to know this. What happened today in Syria is a death blow to Palestinian resistance. What happened today in Syria is a death blow to the Lebanese resistance. What happened today in Syria is a death blow to the axis of resistance, which now has no corridor through which to funnel the necessary material. Netanyahu told you, don't believe me. There is now no road from Iran to the Lebanese resistance, and from the Lebanese resistance to the Gaza Strip, to the West Bank. Know that as you dance on the political grave of al-Assad and his government. Know that you are celebrating a strategic victory of unimaginable dimension, and a victory that cannot be over-exaggerated. This is a stunning reversal of political fortunes. Joe Biden has played a binder in the last days of his presidency. No one knew he had it in him. He's cancelled the elections in Romania that were about to be won by a landslide of the guy who wanted to stop the war in Ukraine and wanted peaceful relations with Russia. He's got them fighting on the streets of Georgia. He's got them dying in their hundreds every day in Gaza. He's got half of the Gaza Strip completely eliminated. He's forced a ceasefire on the Lebanese resistance, the only organized Arab assistance to the Palestinian cause anywhere on the planet. Anywhere. None of them. No Gulf state, no Maghrebi state, no Levantine state, only the Lebanese resistance and the great people of Yemen, the true heroes of this last 14 months. Nothing will now exist. Hezbollah is still a strong organization, but it now will have no money, and it will now have no new weapons, and soon it will have no bullets at all. Nothing stands in the way. Syria lies on the floor, prone, with its neighbors, able to take whatever it is that they want. That's the stakes that were lost today with the collapse of the Syrian state. Israel has already taken and is ready to take more. From tonight, Israel is in a state of war with Syria. The chief of the Israeli army has declared it. The Israeli tanks are on the move. They smashed through the gate of their annexed part of the Golan Heights into Konetra and the Syrian side of the Golan district. They're on the move. They're going to take whatever they want. When asked about it, Jolani, who comes from the Golan Heights, said, we do not have the capacity to do anything about this. Syria's air defenses, its aeroplanes, its heavy artillery are all being destroyed right now in an Israeli blitzkrieg bombing, laying waste. Syria is now defenseless. Anyone can take anything they want from Syria. They've taken the corridor from Iran. They will undoubtedly take the Russian military base in Tartus. As it happens, there are no Russian ships there at the moment. They're out in the Mediterranean, which may or may not be a coincidence. But Russia will not have any Mediterranean base to come back to. Even if a deal was done, even if they're going to be allowed to keep it, they will not be allowed to keep it for long. Russia's airbase has closed. The Russian embassy now has no flag flying on it. Matter of time, in my opinion, before it is sacked and destroyed. China's Silk Route is now dead. No country on the Mediterranean will dare now participate in it. The Mediterranean exit of the Silk Route is now closed. But here I turn to what may be, for some, the most painful blow of all. The Syrian people are the biggest losers. They will now have to live under the black flags of ISIS and Al-Qaeda and hope that the New York Times and CNN are right and that the man who co-founded ISIS in Syria is a leopard which changed its spots. Diversity is now their motto, don't you know? Syrian people, especially Syrian women, especially Syrian Christians, Syrian Shiites, Syrian Alawites, Druze, Kurds, they're all the biggest losers. But the next biggest loser is Iran. The truth is, Iran did not just lose its corridor to supply the Lebanese resistance and thus the Palestinian resistance with the wherewithal to resist, to be a resistance, to exist as a resistance. Iran suddenly became very isolated indeed. From being the head, the heart of a whole axis of resistance, Iran would be well advised to put whatever money it's now going to save, not having to help prop up the Syrian government, to making sure that they prop up their own. Iran's prestige, status, image, strength, soft power has all been gravely damaged over the last 24 hours. As has Russia's. Russia and Iran and China, which had invested less and therefore will suffer less. But Iran, Russia, and China have all suffered mightily in the overthrow of the Syrian Arab Republic. And people are asking, why did Syria not do more? Not in the last 10 days, but it's now clear that the Syrian state had become hollowed out by sanctions. It couldn't afford to pay the soldiers that it demobilized since 2017. Why did its allies not ensure that it was able to pay them? Why did Russia and Iran not know that so emaciated had become Syrian state power that a tiny finger could have pushed it over? And that is what happened. Jolani leads at maximum 25,000 fighters. The Syrian army was 200,000 strong. Then there were the various militias that staved off this disaster many times over the last 10 years. Why was it allowed to become so hollowed out that its defeat, when it came, was not even with a whimper, it was with a squeak? Why did Iran not realize the price itself would pay if the Syrian state were to collapse? Why did Russia not realize the price it would pay in prestige, in logistics, in soft power, in every way, including its naval and air bases in the country? And why didn't they take steps to stop from happening what happened today? Well, we're in a good place. We can ask at least some of those questions right now to our first guest this evening, our beloved guest this evening, Professor Syed Mohammed Marandi of the University of Tehran. Stay tuned for it. I'll be right back.